Hi, everybody. My name is Steve Schwarden. Last year, I attended the Annenberg Lerner Museum Summer Institute, and I learned some stuff that helped me out this year. And I want to share with you some of the things that I did. My name's Steve Schwarden. I teach U.S. history to eighth graders all day. I teach at Eastern Middle School in Silver Spring, Maryland. I don't always have technology readily available to me because we have to share a lot. But I can get laptops when I can. I can get Chromebooks. We do have a set of those for one grade level now. We're supposed to be getting more over the next couple of years. I'm due to get some in about 2 years. A little bit about me in terms of background. I use gamification techniques by using Civilization 4 to teach concepts, government concepts mostly. And we use that as a way to do that. And yeah, you can read about that on my blog too. I have some things on there that you can read about if you want to know more about that. A lot of times, I try to let them pick as much as they can. I try to open up my teaching a lot more than I have in the past. I've done some things where I flipped the classroom, which I'm going to talk about here a little bit too. And we're going to talk about my dossier project. So for the next part here, you can to follow along. I put this on my blog so that way you can kind of follow along, and it'll just be there for everybody. If you go to schwartenteachingthoughts.blogspot.com, it'll take you to where you need to go. I'm currently on the actual page for my dossier project, so you can go along with that too. So the topic is Andrew Jackson and Jacksonian democracy. The project covered all the materials in Jacksonian democracy in the Jacksonian era. Helps the kids understand their online footprint some, allowed them to blog for the first time in my class, and I was looking for a way to make this more appealing from my traditional assignments, which were pretty much just reading, which was boring. Timing, this took like a month to do for me. First, I thought we were going to be able to get it done really fast. It took some kids longer than others. It's a project, and some kids are better at projects than others. So there were times I had to extend things. There were times where I cut things down just because it was too long. The rubric is what I have here. Andrew Jackson Dossier Project has all the different topics for the elections and the War of 1812 and all the different materials of Indian removal, Tecumseh, some of the things I had to teach about the internet or about the Indians and the internet and the textbook stuff, some expectations. The unit procedures and materials for that, I basically framed the project as them being FBI agents. I got this idea when I was sitting watching Neil Caffrey and the TV show White Collar. And they were talking about dossiers like nonstop on one episode, and I was like, wouldn't it be fun to just make dossiers about historical figures? And so I decided one of the most controversial figures that a lot of people love to talk about is Andrew Jackson. And instead of me telling them, what he was or who he was and what kind of person he was, I wanted them to figure it out for themselves. So I gave them all a manila folder that they kept in the classroom. That was their FBI file, and they were supposed to start pulling information from different sources. I also, to begin, showed them this video about dossiers and their digital footprint, which
just about vice parents, or even forwarded.
Talks about how the minute people are born now, they automatically have a digital footprint. So, I just had a baby girl, and her digital footprint now, there's pictures of her on Facebook and Instagram, not Instagram, but instant messengers and all kinds of stuff, and this all gets collected, and eventually you're out there, and there's nothing you can really do about it now, and it's just part of our life. So you just have to kind of either control it and make sure that things don't get out of control on there. In terms of handouts, I broke down each section. Remember at the beginning, if you remember, if I go back up here, I had this in the different sections. So like the stuff that was in section 2 here, I had a comic on Cherokee and the Sequoia, Andrew Jackson's veto message, the image analysis. These were all sheets that they had to grab up at the beginning. Now they could grab these out at one time if they wanted. Some of the kids chose to do them one at a time. Some of the kids chose to do them all at once and grab them and put them in their dossier and keep them all there so they didn't lose them. And it was their choice. I kind of let them choose what direction they wanted to go, which ones they wanted to look at first, but they had to do it in these different sections. So the first section, we did these 5 or 6. Then the second section, we did these 7, where they had to do that stuff. So here's an example of one of the sheets I did. One thing I did differently this time is I recorded all of my lectures. Instead of giving them right there in the classroom, I allowed them to see them online and listen to them, and they could pause, fast forward, do all the kinds of stuff they wanted to them. Here's an example of a note sheet that I used where they write down the definition. They had to draw a picture of what it was, try to get it to stick in their brain. So here's an example of that. These are really quiet because they're my first attempt. They're not great. But it gives you an idea of what I was able to do here. I talked about a lot of different stuff. Here's another example of a sheet that we did. This is Andrew Jackson, the famous image of King Andrew. We did a primary source analysis like we did at the museum last year. So these are some questions that I do along that kind of help them figure out what the image means and that sort of thing. And here's another example where this is this veto message, which I had actually wrote questions along because they got really lost in that one year. So I created questions, guiding questions to kind of help them through that, and they could use that too. I also used videos that I found on YouTube, like this one on the Trail of Tears. Here's another one where I use sentence frames, but I don't have access to the actual sentence frames. They're hard copy at school, and I'm in Ohio right now, so that's not going to happen. But this, you can see where they had to find the information, write down stuff about sentence frames. They could listen to what I had to say about each one of those. The culminating piece, the final project piece, was that they had to create a blog for me. We got a little bumpy start at the beginning when I was trying to teach them how to create it. We had name problems. We had, so if any of you have any kind of solutions for that stuff, I'd love to hear them, because, trying to get them to pick a name it took us the whole class period to figure out, set it all up, get it all. They picked what they wanted, all that kind of stuff. We also talked about cyberbullying. We talked about being respectful of people's opinions online. We talked about all kinds of different things about actually writing a blog, writing for an audience, all that kind of stuff. So here was my general thing for my blog post, what they needed to have in here. They had to have, different parts of Andrew Jackson and all that different stuff. And below I have some links to student blogs. They did a good job, and I was pretty loose on grading them at first because it was the first time we'd ever done this, so I kind of let them have some leeway, as to what they did. I think in the future I'm going to make sure they tell me where they got their pictures from, because that could be kind of a little suspect. But like, for example, you see what she did. They each chose their own name. Some of these are, they put their own name in there. I didn't use any last names at all. Don't want anybody finding out who his kids are and do anything bad to them. So here's an example of Ramitha's blog. She did, for this one, she did bullets. These, she actually wrote stuff. So I was pretty lenient on some of this stuff. And then they were, I'm just figuring it out. And I think if I do these all year as their blog for different topics, like we just do the writing on here. As long as I can get the computers, it'll be pretty fun. There's another one. Oh, jeez. Here's another one where they had a lot of different styles of stuff. She found pictures and that. It's kind of neat to see what they all come up with. So there's that one. Now, in terms of reflection, I think I would have never really. Now you can come back. I don't know if I would have ever necessarily done this without having gone to the museum last year. I think we were in a room with a lot of really cool, smart people who had a lot to offer us, and they brought us, a lot of people had a lot of different things that they had to say. They have new technologies I'd never heard of before. The amount of exchange was pretty awesome. And the idea of flipping was something I had read about, but I wasn't sure how to actually do it effectively and make it work. And there were a lot of people there who did know. In terms of like blogging, I didn't know where to start. I wanted to make sure the kids were safe. I wanted to make sure everything was good, and I wanted to make sure they knew what they were doing. And I actually went back and asked some of the people who've done it before at the institute, hey, how do I do this? And they kind of gave me some pointers and that. But overall, this is a big project. It was kind of inspired to do project-based learning. I kind of mixed a lot of different things into it, things I'd done before, new things I learned at the institute. I had kids tell me all kinds of interesting stuff about it because they were able to just pick whatever they wanted and kind of expand it. They were able to. One person told me she felt like Adams got bullied by Jackson and his cronies. Some kids told me they were like, yeah, Andrew Jackson is like my role model for leadership. Some kids told me he was a racist. So it was all different kinds of topics, and I think that was my goal, was to, who is this person as a whole, and figure that out. So if you have any questions for me, I know I'm out of town now, you can do the Ask Mr. Schwarten feature on my blog here. You can also do the Twitter. You can get me on Twitter. I'm Mr. Schwarten. That's all it is, Mr. Schwarten. Pretty simple. So I hope you enjoyed, and hope you guys are having a great time at the Institute. And I had fun last year, so I'm sure you're having a good time. So have a good summer.